what good is a hurdle race without the hurdles? When you set up a hurdle race, we often trip over some, knock them down. But if you continue with the race, you still have a feeling of accomplishment. And I think that's what God wants from us, that being in this meat puppet is really difficult. And then trying to find our way to good, right, is difficult. And sometimes we mess up. But you didn't commit suicide. You're continuing on the hurdle race, to pick up your speed again. But my life was very difficult too.
Because of the way it helped me, and I grew up in church, but I've seen hypocrisy. I went to Catholic high school that had a scandal. I can understand why people would not go to church, why they feel maybe they can't find any faith there, and why they wouldn't even want to pick up the book. But when someone hears a testimony like yours, and this is, I went to the other side, and I can tell you it's real, and God is real, and God is love, and God loves you. I think people are going to just be tuning into these YouTube clips, and they're going to be finding faith, and they're going to be, being drawn closer to God just through what we're doing. So,
well, if you go by the standard definition of a sinner who should go to hell, I fit that definition 100%. So, except for one little thing. So I was very vain. I had done a big splash in college, but it was after college. I didn't know what to do. So I had a very kind of immature model of what was good, which was to be cool, sort of like in the movies. And I moved to New York City because that's where all the nightclubs were, and that's where Studio 54 was, which was a big thing at the time. And I had a boyfriend that I had cheated on with a secret boyfriend, but then I broke up with the original boyfriend. But before I got together with the secret boyfriend, I was going out with his best friend. So very, very messed up. Nothing did happen with the best friend, but we were toying with the idea, if I hadn't died, who knows what would have happened.
Oh yeah, wow.
But anyway, the thing I can say that I had going in my favor was that I was horrified by the homeless that I saw in New York, because this was 1982 when I moved there. I had never seen a homeless person, and my heart just went out to them. And we lived across the street from a halfway house for crazy people. And I can remember one night this person was out there yelling, God, just let me die. And my roommate, who shared a room with me, because it was a one-bedroom in New York City, she goes, oh my God, now we have to shut the window. And that's all she felt was
kind of callous, yeah.
Yeah, and whereas my heart was breaking for this person. So I think that despite being very confused about what's the right thing to do in life, how am I supposed to work this, I had an open heart, and I was just trying to excel by the most screwed up, game plan ever. But I meant well, and I meant to do well, even though my ego was way too big and all like that. There's a story that Flannery O'Connor wrote that is called A Good Man is Hard to Find. And there's a character in there, the grandmother. She's racist and she's vain and she's all these things about being a lady. But at the end, she is saved. It's a Christian story. But I think what O'Connor was trying to say was she had been taught all these things were good. And,
No problem. Hey.
She had been taught all these things were good, and so she was just following the wrong directions, but with a good heart. And I think I was following the wrong directions, but with a good heart. And now I have a guardian angel who tells me what I should be doing, whether I necessarily want to do it or not. There have been times in my life when I've been on the phone with someone who I knew was going to ask me to be their sponsor in AA. And this person is just a hot mess. And I'm just like, no way am I letting this sick girl into my life. And he will say, she's no sicker than you were. And all she needs is love. Can't you love her? And I'm like, okay.
And you hear that like an audible voice in your mind?
No, it's not an audible voice. It's thoughts that are not mine that come forward with a quality that is not the same quality as my thoughts. Ignacio, my guardian angel, is male. I'm a feminist. I was a lesbian for a while. I did not want a male guardian angel. I wanted a goddess. I ordered a goddess, but he is very masculine. And a couple of mediums have told me that he's very, very old and masculine.
I believe you. The way you described it, you hear the thought, but it's not your own thoughts. You know it's something else communicating to you. That's happened to me at least twice now, and it saved my life one time, actually. So, yeah.
And it saved mine multiple times. We call that in the ND community a knowing.
A knowing.
I was given a knowing rather than I had a thought, right? Because it's different.
That's beautiful.
But here I am in New York City. I go out with my secret boyfriend's best friend, and he had a lot of coke. And we did all the coke that he had on our way to the nightclub, and then we ran out in the nightclub, and we were coming down. And for me, vanity and ego were so important to me, and I was just feeling like I was getting there to the point where I was cool enough, I was good enough, and then like back to being Louisa, which I didn't want to do. And so we bought what we thought was a gram of cocaine. But as soon as we started to snort it, then my date, who had been a dealer, he said that we were had. I don't know. He said, I don't know if this is baby powder or chalk, but it sure as hell ain't cocaine. And I said, yeah, but it numbed our gums before we bought it, we rubbed it on our gums. So it's got to be something. Mm-hmm. So I snorted the vial. I didn't think it could hurt me. Many years later, I learned from former drug dealers who were in AA that they used to cut cocaine with lidocaine because it's much cheaper. It's an anesthetic, and it sounds like I was sold pure lidocaine. So if you put it on your skin goes numb. Mm-hmm. You put it in your body, your heart doesn't work anymore. Your nerves don't work anymore. It shuts down all the nerves, and so my heart was stopping. But I wasn't afraid. I had a lot of trust in drugs, a lot of faith in drugs, foolishly. But I just thought, I'm just going to ride this, fairground ride, and it'll be fine. But then it started to get dark because my brain wasn't getting enough oxygen. I had tunnel vision increasingly because I was about to faint. And I began to feel oxygen starvation, which is not fun. And so I was breathing as hard as I could, but because my heart was slowing down to nothing, it wasn't getting to my brain. And I came out of the bathroom and found my date. I said, there's no air in here. There's no air in here. And I was really I've also heard that from oxygen starvation, you get angry. And I felt angry, like, why is everybody else in this freaking nightclub pretending there's air when there isn't any? So they were like, he was calm down. He took me to the bartender. They were both like, calm down. And the bartender handed me a glass of water, and I did not want it, but I was a people pleaser. So I took it and I took a sip. And that was the moment when I left my body. And on this side, I had flipped over backwards, had a grand mal seizure, big grand mal seizure. I know I woke up a long way from the bar, so I don't know what I did. And I had bruises all over the back of my arms, the back of my head, and horrible pain from having had chest compressions all that time. But for me, I was out of my body and flying straight up in the air, and I had a brief sense of just leaving below me this sort of squalid, dark, slimy pandemonium of Manhattan, but also the tangle I had made of being Louisa, which I felt was just like when a piece of yarn gets all tangled up and you're just like, I just don't know how to undo this. That's how I felt about my life as soon as I was out of my body. So I felt like, don't have to worry about that anymore. And, people are so afraid. I always say, death is wonderful. Dying can suck. If you die because your body's not working anymore and it's a long drawn out process, for me, it was just light switch. I was out of there. And So I was flying up in the air. And I want to say to your viewers that these are not physical things I was going through. They were representations of different kinds of energy, I think now. At the time, I thought it was real, but I didn't question that it was not behaving like normal reality. So I shot up in the air. I decided to do a back bend, and it worked perfectly. And I dove down, and below me was the ocean that just went from one horizon to the other. I dove way down there, and I saw the surface was so high, and I kind of thought, how am I going to get there? The bubbles, though, were beautiful, and the surface was beautiful. And then I just broke the surface. No effort, no struggle. But I didn't say, how did that happen, or anything. I was just like, cool. And then I saw the shore. And, you bring a little bit of yourself, because I'm a terrible swimmer. And so I saw the shore, and I'm like, oh, well, here we go. And I just did a few strokes, and then I was wading out of the water. And again, I just thought, sweet, that's all I thought. So we've gone through air, we've gone through water, now I'm on land, and I see ahead of me a mesa with an old house on it. It was almost like a sea stack, and it had the old weather-beaten blue house on it. And I knew right away that was significant to me, and I should get there. So instead of wing, I'm at the house, I was at the bottom of the mesa, and I had to climb it, and it was covered with disgusting slime. And I was absolutely revolted by it. So this is all my vanity. This is all my selfishness. This is all my anger and fear and all the things that I have to rise above to get to the level where that house is. So I didn't know that. I thought, I am strong and capable, and I can do this. And so I climbed. As I climbed, though, something happened, and I just lost my body. I have no awareness of when that happened, because I know at the bottom I felt physical. I can do this. When I got to the house, though, I was right at the door sill, just this high above the door sill, and I was just a subjective point of consciousness. And I realized the change. I was like, where's my body? Why am I only this far off the ground? But again, my feeling was, it's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop me. I'm going in this house. And as soon as I crossed the threshold, I knew why. And I understood that it was a kind of a way station, and that all my ancestors had passed through it. I didn't think about from what to what. I just knew that we all went through this house, and I could see the wood very close up was super worn down to almost a powder, and from all of us crossing it. And I could feel ancestors as if through the walls, as if they were outside the house, and they were beaming this love into me, and so happy that I was going to join them. I didn't give a hoot about my ancestors in real life, in physical life, I should say, because this was more real. But over there, it just meant the world to me. I was just so honored. I couldn't have been more honored if, I don't know, Queen Elizabeth had said, hey, come hang out with me. I just felt like...
And there was no judgment coming from them, just pure love. They didn't care that you ignored them in your real life and you didn't really think about them much. There was just love. Is that right?
Just love. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And it's weird because I am them. They have handed down the flame of life from them to me. The other day I was thinking about, I hope my son has a grandchild soon. And then I thought, wow, it'll be part me. And then I kind of got it. I kind of got how they felt, because we're sort of like leaves on the same branch of a tree, but we're also just pass it down, pass it down, pass it down. And there are millions of ancestors out there who love you, millions of ancestors who know that you are part them because of how many generations and how many connections there are. When my sister was dying, what was swirling above her was these million lights. And at the time, I could see them in my mind's eye, almost like a galaxy. This is when I was still denying my NDE and still denying everything weird that was happening to me and just not wanting it. So it's like, I don't know why I'm picturing this. I don't know why I can see this whenever I close my eyes, but I sort of knew. There's different layers of knowing, and deep down I knew it was all our ancestors getting ready to, they were revving up to take her, and they were full of love for her. So my ancestors were excited for me to join them. And I knew that there was supposed to be an armchair in the room facing out at the water, and it wasn't there. And I knew that part of the deal was that you sat in that armchair and you looked at the sunset and loved it, or looked at the water view. I knew everybody had done that in this house. And I was like, I want to see. And as soon as I said, I want to see, then something grabbed me by, even though I didn't have a body, it felt like sort of my sternum, where your sternum would be, my heart, where your heart would be. And I started to move over the floorboards, and they were going, I was like, whoa. And I just was full of delight and excitement, went up the wall, and I couldn't believe it was happening, and then over the windowsill and out, and then flew across the water toward the setting sun. And this zoom feeling of going forward, this feeling of just...
We were talking arts and entertainment earlier. The movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, where he's just like, just thinking and playful and effortless. Was it kind of like that?
I can't remember that, but I know that it's when your energy level is rising, when you are vibrationally rising to the level of more love, rather than the lower levels are very primitive things we do down here on Earth. So I was being brought by my guardian angel to the light. And so to reach the light, I was growing in my vibration, and it felt absolutely amazing. So I'm approaching the sun. I begin to see the corona on the sun, and I'm like, whoa, this is not just a flying over the water thing. I'm actually going to the sun. And I thought, am I going to vaporize? But again, I did not have fear, because fear is something we need here for self-preservation. And on the other side, nothing can happen to you. So I didn't have fear. Anyway, I got closer, and then I passed through some kind of filament, and I was inside the sun, and that's when I was in the light. And that's when I say it was just a million times better than any kind of pleasure or delight you can imagine on Earth. And I was complete. And if I think about it enough, I cry, but I don't go there every time now. It was that I was a insecure 22-year-old, trying to just like me. That's all I was saying, my whole life. Look, I got good grades. Look, I'm a good ballet dancer. Look, I do this, I do that. Anyway, and
you had a very academic upbringing, right? Your dad was a hardcore atheist, and it was kind of like do good in school and perform well, and you're given love.
My mom was an art historian, and so that was it. But it was always their love was held back, and I say it was jump for the cookie love. Because my mom even told me straight up one time, if we just loved you all the time, we wouldn't have any leverage to motivate you to do better. She plain out said that, and so they just very clearly used, well, we almost love you, and shame as ways to get us to excel more. So here I had a sense of like I had been starving for something, and now I was just inundated with it. I was just completely saturated with love, filled with love, and it was just, all I could see was the light, was just brilliant light. And again, even at the time, I was slightly surprised that it didn't burn my eyes, but it was as light can be. And then I began to sense that I was loved by something, and it was like a parent figure that was holding me like a baby and just pouring love into me. And the way I see it today is like if you had a little toddler and you just adored them, and you said, hey, go out and play in the yard, and you saw them fall, and you saw them eat dirt, and you saw them mess up, and then they came back to you, you would be like, oh, I'm just so glad to have you back. That's how he was. And so at the time I just thought of it as the parent. I didn't think of it as he. So everything's wonderful. All of a sudden he goes, you can't stay, you're not done yet.
You can't stay. You're not done yet.
It happened so suddenly, the two messages and the blackness. That was the only time I felt anger and fear, and they were so close together. So the anger was this rage of like, no, I'll show you, you can't send me back, even though I didn't quite remember what back meant. I just knew I wanted to stay. And if I had had hands and fists, which I did not, and which, I would have thrown a tantrum, or I would have kicked them in the shins, or I wanted to do something to just prove to them that they couldn't send me back. And I felt myself drop in the darkness and felt an instant of fear, of almost terror. So this is what, in my opinion, and I talk about this in my book, I feel like to keep us in our body and keep us kind of spiritually blind while we are in body, so that we can attend to the business of being embodied and doing what we're supposed to do here with the challenges of life and so on. There's a coating of fear and anger around us, a membrane. So every cell in your body has what is called a hydrophobic membrane. It repels water so that each cell can function as an individual. And we have this God-phobic membrane around us so that we can function as individuals on Earth and not be like, oh, there's my great aunt so-and-so, and get eaten by the tiger. So in passing back through it, I felt rage and fear. This idea began to form for me when a sweet little old lady said, I was the sweetest little old lady ever, but when he said I had to go back, I could have killed him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's very uncharacteristic, but it's not necessarily coming from within. It's coming through as part of the process of returning to the body. So I had a little kind of interim phase where I was seeing on the blackness these white chalk figures drawn, and they were animated, and I kind of thought, okay, this is just like Saturday morning cartoons. I'm just going to hang out and watch this show until I can go back to the light, because I know I'm going to get to go back. And eventually one of the figures of the chalk things got too close to me, and face filled in solid, and here it was the bartender, and he was saying, how many fingers, what is your name? So first I'm just seeing this, I'm trying to watch it like it's just a show that has nothing to do with me. Then I'm like, oh, he thinks that he's separate from me and he's talking to me, and oh, I'm back in that meat puppet. And I just thought like, oh, how did that happen? How can I be stuck in this thing again? And I also felt like talking was so primitive, because even the small taste I've had of telepathy, I forgot to say that the first time I heard my angel speak, it was while I was zooming across the ocean. I have to go back to that. I had a question about whether I was dreaming. And so I just, in my mind, thought, is this real? And he answered in a knowing, in a thought, more real than anything back there. And I knew that by that back there, he meant in that physical life, but I was super surprised that somebody was with me. I had not known. So, but even in that little bit of telepathy, and you can't stay, you're not done, speaking seemed incredibly far-fetched. It's just incredibly far-fetched. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take in signals through my eyeballs, figure out what's going on with you, and then I'm going to decide what I want to say, and I'm going to code it in these little bits of meaning, and I'm going to kind of burp them out my mouth and vibrate something and make different shapes, and it's going to make a sound, and then you can get that, and you can decode that into little and figure out where I'm coming from. Like telepathy so much. It's like people, when I ask my guardian angel for a name during the pandemic, it's like, we don't have names. I'm me. Like, me, right? I know you. Yeah, we don't have names. Nothing has a name when you have telepathy. It's not necessary, right?
Yeah.
If I say like zucchini, I'm just thinking to you and you know it, and we don't have to have a symbol. So
marvelous.
It's very cool. So I guess I want to condense this because I want to come up to speed let's just say I did not go to the hospital because when I realized the ambulance was for me, again, I'm 22 and all I can think of is how upset my parents are going to be. That's all I can think of.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just said, I can't go. And I also have to say, I did not thank the man who saved my life, the bartender who came over to speak to me while we were waiting for the ambulance. I was just embarrassed that this man had had his mouth on my mouth for a long time and done CPR on me. And I just said, yeah, thanks. And I was already smoking. I was already back to being cool because I was just a little twerp. I was a twerp. I was a 22-year-old vain twerp. And, doing the best I could. Anyway, so when I got home, I wanted an alcoholic drink, and my date and my roommate were like, no, you were dead. You were dead for 3 minutes. And I was just like, whatever. Can't I have a drink? And so I had to go straight to bed like I was a bad girl.
Let's have one more.
No, you've had enough.
Just a little one.
No, you need to go to bed.
And when I got up the next day, I told the story to my roommate because I remembered it perfectly. And then I went into the room and I said, I was going to journal about what happened. And that's when I hit the, here's the dividing road. Was this real, or was it a dream or a hallucination or something? And right away I had the sense I crossed over. But I was just like, error, cannot do that. It's not possible because I'm an atheist, and that's got to do with church. And so I sort of saw that if I accepted this, I would have to go to church, which to me was just, I thought I would have to just turn into a goody-goody and carry around a Bible and have goody-goody little friends. And I've got my mini skirts, I've got my spike heels, I got my lipstick, I am in New York City, and that is not me. So the other way, I'm like, well, I know it wasn't a dream. It didn't feel like a dream. I don't remember it like a dream. It's like I really was somewhere. And then I just got this idea of hypoxia, and that I don't know what hypoxia does to a brain, lack of oxygen. So maybe it closes down into a story, and that seems to be the only real thing. And maybe all of the people who are researching NDEs now, they come up with these ideas too. They're like, oh, you go through memories, you go through, and you what you want is love, and so you manufacture it. Like the brain is comforting itself. I was like, yeah, that, what you said, so that I can make this be about my brain and not about having crossed over to a divine place. And so I just said, okay, that's my story, I'm sticking to it. And then a little voice goes, what about when he said more real than anything back here and you knew it was true? I'm like, well, I was part of a dream. And I just wasn't having it. So I tried to go back to living my normal life, which involved a lot of drinking. I eventually became very depressed. I left New York City. I moved in with the secret boyfriend, and we got married, and I was even more depressed. And this was 1987 when I was walking on a beach in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And I saw this old dude down the beach. It was 7 a.m. and a horrible storm. And I was walking on the beach because I was kind of like this about a love interest back. I was cheating on my husband in my mind already with a woman. And so I'm walking on the beach, and she had been with her boyfriend in the house, and I just couldn't handle it. So I just left. And I'm walking down the beach, and it's pouring rain, and this guy comes out of an area where there's just swamps. There's no houses in on this part of the beach. And I thought, is he bird watching? But he doesn't have binoculars. What could he have been doing in the swamp? And he's got on old-fashioned Macintosh. They used to spray cloth with rubber, and that's what all the guys on the ships wore. And he has the hat, and he has the boots, and he looks just like a guy on a fish sticks bag. And I'm into Madonna at this point. I'm into vintage clothing. And so I want to ask him, where's the vintage clothing where you got that? So I watch him, and I think he's going to say, and it gets closer, and he's walking toward the water, and he's looking like this. He's just looking like he's so intensely wants to see something. But when I look at the water, there's no horizon. There's nothing but storm. There's nothing to see there. So eventually we're going like this, and I cross behind him. And as I got very close, I could see broken capillaries in his skin. I could see he drank too much. I said, "How's it going?" And I thought I saw his eyes shift a little bit toward me, but I didn't say anything. And so I went about 4, 5, 10 steps further, and I just thought, what a jerk. We're the only 2 people on this beach, and he's too cool to talk to me. So I turn around, angry. I'm going to say something to him. And he's not there.
Where did he go?
My brain goes, "Wow," and I'm going through he's too old to have run up the hill. He's too old to have run down to the water. Maybe he did, and maybe he don't. Maybe he was thinking about committing suicide. That's why he had that look on his face. Well, his hat's going to float, so I'm watching for the hat. No hat, no hat. Finally, I think I'll find this little sucker. And I turn around and go back to look for his footprints. And there's only one set of footprints on this beach. So it's kind of like if you were holding this cup and then you just let go and it just hung there in the air. It's like, that cannot happen. That cannot be. I went back, and the people that I was staying with, the owner of the house, she said, "This is Gloucester. There are hundreds of names on a plaque of people who died at sea downtown, and you saw a ghost." And I was like, "Yeah, you can see ghosts and stupid stuff like that, but no, I'm crazy. You know, if I think this, like, what?"
Just for clarification, so you were walking on the beach, you saw like a sailor type guy past you. Only once he disappeared. Something similar actually happened to my dad, so I totally believe you. But the question is, that morning, were you a little hungover, or were you on any meds at that morning, or just kind of normal day?
I was hungover, but I was hungover every morning.
Okay, got it. Yeah, hungover is not drunk, and hungover is not under the influence of drugs. Yeah, your brain is just kind of waking up, and you need your coffee, kind of a feeling.
Yeah,
right?
no, I had some tea, but everybody was still asleep.
Okay.
And so I had left the house. And I've heard other stories too of people like disappearing behind, like, say, at the post of a parking garage. They're there and then they're not. Like, and then I've had other things happen here as well. But I mean, since
it happened to me once, now that I remember, but I'll say that for another time. It happened to me once.
Well, that was the first weird thing. Then that was 5 years after the NDE, because I'm drinking so much. Like, the spirit world cannot reach me because I am not spiritually present ever. I am uncomfortable. I am dousing it with alcohol. And then it was 92 or 93 that I knew my unborn nephew was going to die. Just knew it as soon as I heard that my sister-in-law was pregnant. And the day before, when I was gone out for lunch with my brother at Happy Teriyaki, and he was just so excited for, his baby to be born. And he got in his car afterwards, I got in mine, and I just remember looking at the steering wheel saying, I gotta tell him, what do I tell him? And I kind of pictured myself going and knocking on the glass of his door and then saying, your baby's gonna die, and I can't tell you when, and I can't tell you how, but I know he's gonna die. And I can't do that. And if I'm wrong, what the hell,
And if you're right, were you in on it?
Well, he called me the next morning, and I knew, and I felt incredibly guilty, even just having the double reaction of like sadness for him, but also, holy shit, I knew. It was both. And my inner critic, my inner cynic asks me all the time, you're just exaggerating. Everybody worries about a pregnancy. And in retrospect, you're making, no. That moment at the steering wheel was torture, and that's not normal. So, that happened, and then I guess the next big one is when I got sober. So I had gotten worse and worse. I had a teaching job, and I left it because it got in the way of my writing career, not my drinking career, my writing career. And I got with my partner, the woman I had been obsessed with back in Gloucester. We were together, and we went to this got a log cabin in unincorporated Thurston County because it was the city that was making me drink too much. And anyway, I did the whole thing again because I had, in addition to alcohol addiction, I had what I call love addiction or infatuation addiction. It's not really love, it's just infatuation. You think it's love, but it's infatuation. And so I had fallen for a guy who worked at the same espresso bar where I did, and my partner left me because she read my journal.
Oh. Yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah, thank goodness we're friends now on Facebook and all like that. It's all. So I used to go to Keggers. I was 34. I was going to Keggers. I didn't have another model for how to live. All the people that I worked with went to these parties afterwards, so I did too. So one night I went to Kegger and I got so drunk. I was hoping the boy I was infatuated would be there, but he wasn't. And I kept falling down and everybody go, whoa! And that's how I knew I was falling. And I just didn't care. And I was reading Bukowski at that point. You know, I don't know if you know Bukowski, but it's a very nihilistic, alcoholic view of the world, like nothing matters, so we may as well. And then I was writing in my journal, like, why not throw myself at him? There is no such thing as right or wrong. That's just inventions of the hive to keep the hive alive. It's just morality, and there is no right and wrong. And so my friends tried to take my keys away. They drove me to a house. They said, you sleep here on this bed, but they left the keys. And I staggered up, and after they were gone and got in the car, couldn't find the ignition forever and ever, couldn't find it, finally found it. Took off, driving 80 miles an hour down these winding roads toward my house, and that's when I was very suicidal. I was kind of like, two things, I can die, or if I can just be incapacitated so that I'm just like in a hospital and all I'm doing is drooling and I don't have to perform anymore. That's okay too. I'll take it. And I came to this bridge where the road got more narrow, and it was going over railroad tracks, and I was so plastered I just saw all these reflector signs, and I just thought, I'll just shoot for the middle. I'm blasting the music, I'm smoking cigarettes, I'm just not caring. And I shot for the middle and I went through, and I got home to my log cabin, and it was a beautiful starry night. I got out of the car, I had to hold on to the door because I couldn't stand it, and I thought, I drive like such a badass when I'm drunk. And the knowing comes to me like, boom, like he had to bellow to get through all that ego, all that stupid drunken whatever, and reach me. And he said to me,
this is the last time you do know right from wrong. And you do know right from wrong.
As soon as he said, you do know right from wrong, I'm like, holy shit, this read my journal. and and I felt immense shame because somewhere inside I did know right from wrong. Somewhere inside I knew that I was just crapping all over a beautiful gift, and that this, whatever it was, had been saving me. And you also have a sense about that. If you're an alcoholic and you know there's a couple times you should have died, you know that somebody was looking out for you. So it took me a month after that of just kind of, I like to say there was poop in the punch bowl. I just couldn't drink the same way anymore. There was just this awareness. It would come to me when I was trying to drink. You know, you do know right from wrong, and someone has been trying to save you. And so I got sober a month later on January 29th, 1995, and I haven't had a drink since, and that was 31 years ago.
Let us bow our heads in
However,
prayer.
what I began to do, because of going to AA, I began to try this praying thing. Okay, I'll just try this praying thing. And for all the spirits out there who've been wishing and wishing they could reach me, all they needed was for me to open the door a little bit, and then they could get through to me. And then I could begin to hear my angel and know things. But also I accidentally began to read minds. And I was always, reading minds is very embarrassing sometimes. In one case, I was going to write down a woman's name on a clipboard. I ran the writing center at the university, and she wanted a slot, and we used a clipboard back then. So she told me her first name was Wendy, and I couldn't quite write it. I just couldn't. You know when there's the wrong end of a magnet, that feeling, you know? But I can write Lee, and I just wrote Lee. And so then she looked at me, she goes, why did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. And I like crossed it out. She goes, that's my last name. I was waiting to say it. And she freaked out, this woman. She goes, I don't want to scare the cats, but she goes, I've never been here in my life. I'm like, and I said, it must have spilled over. And that actually was the first time that I told people about a weird thing happening. So I had more of those going forward, even more embarrassing, but I kept fighting the weird things until telling someone was the beginning of coming out to myself. And then a very weird thing happened with having the dream come true the next day, a year passing, and a woman explaining to me what the dream had meant. It was about a giant spider, which was the emblem for my fears then, because I was so arachnophobic, spider in real life. And then the woman told me about what the giant spider had meant, and everything fit my circumstances perfectly with my breakup, and I broke down and cried. I was reading on my computer. The spider had been a year ago right up above me. I was crying when I saw it, and I said, you're real, and I looked up to kind of thank the spot where the spider had been, and it was like I could, with my mind's eye, not my eyeball eyes, I could see through to the universe. I could see through to the stars, and all of a sudden I just had a sense of myself surrounded by the universe, and I cried, like ugly crying, and said, I will never doubt you again. And then, interrupting my hallmark moment of coming out to myself as a woo-woo, I sense Ignacio's cracking up. He's just cracking up. He's laughing. And he goes, yes, little one, we're real and we can do real stuff.
Yes, little one, we are real and we can do real stuff.
That's what he said.
That's beautiful.
It's not so dramatic. It's just the facts, ma'am. That's what it is. But to me, it was this huge deal. But anyway, I promised him, I said, in my mind's eye, if I had a shingle above the door of my house, it had said Louisa Peck, Atheist, and I was going to turn it, and it would say Louisa Peck, frickin' woo-woo. And that's what I am now. And will always be a woo-woo. Because now, weird stuff happens to me, Adam, all the frickin' time.
I love it.
Yeah, we could talk for 10 hours, and I would not run out of weird stuff.
For you, I have a couple hours, and it does multiply my editing time to make the video look really nice. But you're so darn interesting, and I'm really blessed and having so much fun. Can I ask you a few questions? Number one, on the spider, could you give me a little more detail? What was the dream interpretation specifically around what the spider represented?
So in the dream, it was a moment of summoning my courage to deal with the giant spider. And someone gave me a glass and it fell in on its back, and I saw the beautiful pattern of triangles of beige and browns and grays on its belly. And the thought came in the dream, diamonds of infinite precision. And the next day, I'm getting ready to leave. I've got my toddler on my hip. I'm late for the toddler co-op. I've got the notebook I have to get, and I see in the other room a black ping pong ball on the ceiling. And I put together that it's a gigantic freaking spider. And then I think, well, I was courageous in the dream. I can be courageous now. And then that's kind of weird. That's, put my toddler down, go up, get a glass, think over it, and I ran out my front door, and I thought, I'm not putting this guy in my yard. It's too thick and big. I'm going to put it in the neighbor's.
That's funny.
On their on something in their kind of rockery thing, and it was a kind of evergreen bush. I can't think of what it's called, juniper, that I threw it on, and it had been on a juniper plant in the dream, and it lay there on its back, and I saw the same pattern. Triangles making the diamonds, and then the phrase diamonds of infinite precision came to me, only this time it was attached to the message that God is everywhere in every detail of everything, right down to the pattern on a spider's belly. So I'm freaking out, and I'm trying to look for in some kind of science experiment, like how did they give me this dream? And then I was freaking out. And then I thought, oh my God, my boy's alone in the house. So I ran in. When I looked one more time to really be sure it was real, and the spider lay there, and then when I pulled back, it turned over and went back into the bush. And then a year later, I went for some reason all the way across Seattle to this woman's house was turning 40, who I hadn't seen in years and years and years, but she was the most woo-woo person I knew. She had cured herself of cancer with just a double mastectomy and drinking wheatgrass and meditating.
Yes, I love wheatgrass. I believe in this stuff, but please continue.
I at the time had thought she was foolish, but here she was 10 years later, completely vibrant and healthy. So for some reason, clairvoyance came up, and I told my story. I said a silly thing happened to me with clairvoyance about a spider. I told the dream, and then she goes, I think that was a spirit messenger. So I have two parts of me. One part of me is like, listen to her. The other part of me is like, spider spirit messenger? Are there flea messengers? Are there tick spirit messengers? Like I got the stereo voices, the cynic and the listener. And so she read for me a book, and she asked me, wasn't that the time that my relationship broke up? This is the partner I had my son with. And I said, no, that hadn't happened yet. But as I was driving home, because the spider cuts the threads, you have these threads of life, and when one part of your life is going to end, they cut the thread. And so I told her no, and then driving home, and I'm like, that's when the cheating began. That's when the new job. So it was when that relationship was going to end. And she was right. And then she had told me to look up, and I just read something called Animals Speak by, I can't think of his name now, but it said, are you a writer who's not writing? Are you giving your energy to someone else? And that whole relationship, all my energy had gone into this other person, and I had started writing again since the relationship ended. So that's when I realized it was just all about finding the courage to live through that breakup and go back to writing. It was similar to the courage I summoned in the dream and in reality to just deal with my fears, deal with the spider. And so that's as I number them, that was weird thing number 9. I used to keep a list of them, but now there's too many to list.
Oh yeah.
That's the one where I came out to myself, but still wouldn't tell other people what was happening.
With the mental powers, talking about coming out, mental powers.
I just mean admitting to myself that the spirit world really is real. Because what I used to do was like something would happen and I would know it was real. Mm-hmm. And then I just need a couple months or a year and I could rationalize it away and be like, you must have thought this. I'd somehow just, I like to describe it as having a giant vault, and anything that didn't fit my paradigm of physical reality, of Newtonian physics, of just, atoms and molecules is it. I would shove in that vault and lock it and just go about being myself. Because if I told my dad any of this stuff, or my mom, my dad was who I respected the most. So if I had told him any of this stuff, he just would have thought I was crazy.
Oh yeah. I could share when we're done off the record. I'll share a woo-woo story where I heard a voice and it was telling me to go to a certain place, and I didn't want to listen. I wanted to take a nap. But when I went there, there was a woman who was being abused and she needed help. And I followed the voice, and then I knew why later. With your mental powers, did those manifest right after the moment where you were driving like a bat out of hell and you're smoking, listening to the music, and then the voice was like, right from wrong? Is it immediately after that event when your mental powers of thought reading happened? Or when did those start kicking in?
The powers accelerated slowly, but I had to start praying. I had to open my gates and pray to let in the light of the spirit communication. And then after I had come out to myself and like, this is real, then I would talk to Ignacio, I used to call him Angel until a pandemic, talk to him a lot, and he would talk to me a lot. Like I said, he would make me do the right thing, One friend there was the sponsee that I had accepted, because even though she was, in my opinion, a hot mess, and he had said to just love her, she had gotten sober with me. We had gotten to be really close friends. She was just short of earning her journeyman, whatever you call it, rating, or I'm not sure what you call it, but she was a welder, and diesel mechanical repairman, and she stood up from doing something, and somebody was operating the crane without a spotter and bashed her brains. She died. So before this happened, the week before it happened, she was mad because I hadn't come to her housewarming party, and someone told me, Vanessa's mad at you because she goes to all your parties and you didn't come to hers. So the voice says, call her now. So I called her, and then she says, well, I'd like you to see my place. The voice says, go tomorrow, And so I was like, how about, can I come over tomorrow? And she's like, sure. So I drive all the way across to SeaTac, see her, we have dinner together. She put on her welding mask to show me. She had that in a giant wrench, and when she put it on, I got a dark feeling. I got a not good feeling. And it was because of the welder's mask that she couldn't see the thing coming that hit her later. But she had just told me that people had broken in and stolen some tools, so I thought, I think they're going to come back. I think that must be what I'm feeling. But I didn't say anything. And then we hugged each other goodbye, and she said, I love you. I said, I love you. And then, just a couple days later, I heard she was gone.
Wow.
And so Ignacio knew all that was going to unfold, and he gave me the chance to, otherwise we would have been fighting when she died. So she's talked to me a couple times too. It's wonderful when loved ones are not completely gone, because my ex-boyfriend died of alcoholism, and it was like a month later, because I had been seeking him, and a month later he burst in while I was listening to Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive, and he used that word survive, and he said, it's me, I survived death. And he was very, very upset, and he communicated to me that, what did I die from? I don't understand, because he had gotten internal hemorrhage from drinking too much alcohol, fainted alone in his house, collapsed, and then bled out because he was lying on the floor there, fainted, and he just bled out. And so what he showed me was seeing that body and just not understanding why he couldn't get back in it. So then he communicated, the next song to come up was Share If I Could Turn Back Time, and he was trying to say he would have done right. And then the next song to come up was Blondie, Dreamin' Is Free. And I thought, is this just the song or is this you? And he goes, it's me still. And he goes, I want to visit you in your dreams, but I need your permission. Can I have it? And I said, yes, honey, yes. And then he visited me in my dreams for 2 weeks and showed me his side of the relationship in things. We had different power dynamics, because I had a lot of education, he had none. He showed me how that felt, and a lot of other things as well. But he's not around as much. It's kind of like when he first crossed, he was here a lot. He mansplained a couple things when I bought this house, and I was trying to fix it up, and I was about to put a bolt in the wall about something, and he goes, no, don't do that. Take a zip tie and cut it and drill holes in either side. Like just nothing I would have thought of. He was just hanging around mansplaining.
So you were an atheist. Can I ask, what did God mean to you before your NDE? And then what does God mean to you now after your NDE?
Well, we'd have to say my woo-woo outcoming. So when my father raised me to understand that religion was a crutch that primitive people needed because they didn't understand natural phenomenon and they were afraid of death. And so they invented this parent figure so that they could explain both and they could feel comforted. But there was really just science, and then when you died, you died. But you should just try to do good for the sake of good. Which, now that I think about it, like why? What is good? And why should you do it for the sake of good? There is a faith there that he wouldn't acknowledge, right? There was a faith in goodness, which is the same thing as a faith in God, really.
Where does the goodness come from?
Yeah, a lot of atheists think they're atheists, but they believe in goodness and they know goodness when they see it, and just that's God. Like in AA, when people can't accept a higher power, we tell them good, orderly direction. just in good orderly direction,
Oh.
Yeah, and it works. So I just thought, okay, any God is going to be old man in the sky, some stupid thing like that, and there's no way I'm going to believe in it. And then when I had my near-death experience, I was just a little afraid because I did feel like I was a bad person, and I didn't understand why I had this blissful, loving experience. I felt I didn't deserve it. And so, I just kind of shoved all those feelings in the vault with, I'm just not going to think about this thing. And then when the thing happened with the spider and I broke down and cried and it showed me the universe and it said we can do real things, I just understood. He always calls me little one. I understood that I am just loved because I am love, and God is love. And
Amen.
I've interviewed a lot of near-death experiences. I have a book coming out soon published by Seattle Ions. It's with Seattle Ions, published by the Big Ions.
Wonderful.
I'll tell you more about that later. But in interviewing people, it becomes more and more clear that intelligence and love are the same thing. That intelligence and curiosity and learning and knowing and caring and, it's all connected to love. And love is the power that animates us. Love is the power that animates Walter. And Walter's going to go to the other side as well. There are children who tell about, you're usually met on the other side by someone who's died. Mm-hmm. And if you know anyone who's died, but your pet has died, the pets will come for them on the other side.
Welcome to heaven, Walter. Go play. Yes,
God
that's
is
it.
the
Have fun.
expression of intelligence and love combined, and every bit of nature, it's all just beautiful creation. And I cannot know why we are embodied, but I do know that it has to do with creating some kind of barrier that we need to cross. A spark can jump, and we can get from I'm scared, I'm all by myself, to no, wait, you're just like me. Hey, we can be friends. That is the jumping of a spark. And I love all the time out in the public to connect.
You had no religious background before your NDE. And this is kind of mind-blowing because I think the logic in a lot of religions is just, well, you're one of us or you're not going to paradise. And it's like a lot of different denominations have this kind of underlying logic, which doesn't seem very logical because how can they all be correct, right? And here you are, no religious affiliation, but it seems like you were on your way to paradise with your NDE. So this begs the question, do atheists get to go to heaven? Or is there something else that qualified you? And there's no judgment around this question. It's just a curiosity,
My feeling about people who say, if Christ doesn't save you, you're going to hell, is that they're living in fear. It's a fear-based system. How can I protect myself from a hostile, mean, cruel universe and an angry God? Well, Jesus will stick up for me. So I'm going to cling to that in terror. And, it was very useful. If you're a monarch in England and you want all the peasants to just be peasants, you tell them, hey, you be good peasants or you're going to hell, and they're not breaking rank. I feel like a lot of it comes from that. I mentioned earlier that I had an open heart and a loving heart and concern for people. This is all God really cares about, right? Now, everything I saw in my NDE is conditioned by symbols. So my father had taught me that the sun was my source, because all the energy of all of our thoughts and all of our movements comes from the food we eat, which has gathered energy through photosynthesis, which is originating in the sun. Okay, so really it's in the Big Bang, but it's coming from the sun. So the sun was my home. When I went home, I was going home to my source. If I had been raised with a lot of religion, my mom kind of forced you had to look at all the religious paintings and stuff every Christmas and understand the whole story of it. but it was taught to me as a story. Whereas for my dad, I was like, yeah, I do come from the sun. It made sense to me. Ignacio also, during the pandemic, I told him, I can't keep calling you Angel. What is your name? And he told me we don't have names on the other side. And then I said, please, just give me a name from one of your lives. How about? And then he goes, I've had so many names in so many lifetimes, and none of them is in an alphabet you know. And so I went like, ooh, I hadn't thought of that. Well, I'm just going to sit down and meditate and just give me something, anything. And so I sat down and he showed me a capital I and a G when I was meditating and kind of, focusing in. And I go, Ig? What? I don't know a single Ig name except Iggy Pop. And he goes, Ning. And I go, Iggy Pop is your name? He goes, no. What is Iggy's name? And I go, is it Ignacio? And then he goes, puts an E under the I, capital E. So I go, Ignacio? He goes, it'll do, little one. So then right away I Google it, and it means it's an Etruscan name. So that was kind of his last lifetime, was pre-Greek Empire.
Huh.
And it means born of fire.
Ooh.
And so that's why he was the sun. That's why he was in the sun. However, I mean, if I'm an atheist and I'm clinging to that out of desire to be right, I'm just the same as a religious zealot. There's no difference. I'm just saying, basically on faith, I believe in molecules, and I believe what I was taught in science class, and I believe like what the general public believes, and I'm just going to stick to that. And, having an open mind and just trying prayer, I would say just try it. And if you want to connect to your loved ones, just meditate on how it feels to be with them when they are loving you, people who have died. And that will give them, because they're trying to talk to you all the time, but you've got this barrier, and you're deaf. You're deaf. And it's very frustrating for them. I have talked to spirits who were frustrated as all get out. I was talking to them, I was, and nobody could hear me. I figured out that nobody could hear me. Well, that's what happens with your loved ones. But when you really focus in on how it feels to be loved by them, you can give them an in.
Amazing. But just before I met you on the interview here, I was interviewing my cousin who he had NDE, but he also had dream revelations, and he would see, he had a best friend that passed away, and then his best friend would appear to him in the dream, and he wouldn't say anything. But after the third dream, his best friend finally said, you have to let go of me, because my cousin was living in the past and he was crying and he missed his best friend over 6 months. And so it's really fascinating how connected we are, even in spirit, and in after someone has left this earth. When you went to the other side, you were told you couldn't stay and you had to come back. Was that Ignacio speaking to you, or was that the source creator God, or just something in the light, or an ancestor?
I feel like Ignacio got the word from a higher level of source. And this bartender was doing CPR for 3.5 minutes. He says more than 3 minutes. Nobody was timing it, but that was his sense. My date had asked him to cover me up because he was so sure it wasn't working. Ooh. But once they found a way, God, to get rid of all the lidocaine in me, which I don't know how he did. I had enough lidocaine to stop a heart. How 3.5 minutes later am I sitting up and talking again? How? It's a miracle. But when I look at, I have helped a lot of people. I write a blog on alcoholism. I've helped maybe 40 women get sober. I just try to be a positive influence everywhere I go. I've written 4 books, and none of that had manifested yet. And I feel like Source God was like, she can do some good. Let her try again, Mm-hmm. And then Ignacio was so frustrated with me when I threw away that chance, And he saved my life. He said this is the last time I can help you, but he's helped me twice more to not die. One time I left somewhere and I felt my brakes were a tiny bit soft, and I was on top of Queen Anne Hill in Seattle, which is a 500-foot hill. I was going to go down to this very busy intersection down a steep hill. As I'm approaching it, he just goes, "You have no brakes, pull over." And I'm like, I'll get them checked. And he's like, "You have no brakes, pull over now." And I said, "No, I've got a hairdressing appointment and it's pouring down rain, and I'm not going to pull over and say I'm missing my appointment because my angel told me to, So what does he do? He takes the sign on the other side of the street that was a no parking sign for the people coming the other way, and he put arterial turns and a left arrow on, and a right arrow. And I saw that and I go, "That sign's not for another block, is it?" And he goes, it's here, turn. And so I turned, very confused. He really co-opted my thinking. And I turn onto this little side street, realize my mistake, put on the brakes, and there is nothing. There is nothing. So how did it go from being a tiny bit soft to being nothing? When I had it towed, the guy showed me, he said, "This is a really old Honda Accord, and the rubber parts go, and you cracked it when you turned, and all of the fluid leaked out. So you're very lucky."
Wow.
So he saved me a number of times.
Yep. I've heard the voice talk to me too. My spirit guide. I guess I don't have a name for it either, but maybe I'll come up with a name one of these days.
Well, you can just ask him, and then just quiet and just keep asking and see if you get one suggested that you can agree on. Like Ignacio's like, "You can call me Ignacio. I was that guy once."
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh, that's the other question. You mentioned Ignacio was explaining he had previous lives and lots of different names in his previous lives. How does an atheist go from this conversion experience to being a deist and realizing God is love? And then do you also now believe in the concept of reincarnation as a reality?
Ooh, I do. And really, when he said I've had so many names and so many lifetimes, that's when I was like, okay, it's real. Because I'd heard other near-death experiencers talk about it. And after he said that, I was like, dang, I'm going to get a past life regression and find out about my past lives. And so I did. I've been male more often than I've been female. Eben Alexander, I'm not crazy about Eben Alexander personally.
I'm interviewing him next month in April. I'm interviewing him, but go ahead.
Well, he's great, but he said something. He said there can be no loving God without reincarnation. And what he means is you get another chance. You try each time and you do a little better in each life. But if you just get one shot and then you're dead forever, how is that a loving God? Whereas for me, as soon as I was out of my body to go back to my near-death experience, I felt like this is the real me. This is me. And it wasn't really gendered, and it wasn't, enmeshed in my history or anything. It was again, that spirit that my Monopoly guide talked about. I can do this. I can do this. That was my driving vibe.
Do you have a name for this realm that you went to when you had the lidocaine poisoning and you're out for 3 minutes and you're loop-de-looping over the ocean and having a great time? It doesn't strike me as it's exactly like an eternal paradise kingdom where we all have a mansion, but it's somewhere in between. Do you have a name for this?
Yeah, I think it was all kind of a way station. The house was my ancestors' crossover, but I was in an in-between state. If I had crossed through the house, crossed over some barrier, I would have not been able to come back. But I was, for all NDEers, so many, it's always symbolism. People are told if you walk through that door, you can't go back to life. If you step over that ledge, you can't go back to life. If you walk across that line, you can't go back to life. If you cross that brook, you can't go back to life. It doesn't matter what symbol is used, it means divider, right? And every single NDEer has not crossed the line, gone through the doorway. I've done a lot of interviews, and they've all, for whatever reason, not chosen to leave completely. I didn't get a choice. I was just like, boom, you're back. But some people do. Although they tell me, a lot of people I interviewed said, I knew my kids would be fine. I knew, so the other ones feel like I have to go back and take care of my kids.
Yep, that's a common theme I'm hearing. Or the angels will say you have a choice, but if you do come into the eternity, your kids are going to grow up without a father, and they're going to turn to drugs. They'll go through their own process, but if you want to be there as a father, that sort of thing. It's really beautiful and fascinating. Great. Were you given any specific messages for humanity? Maybe your ancestors gave you a word to pass on?
I can say, in my book, I talk about kind of all the different messages he's given me, and they all point to a way of living life. Sometimes he emphasizes it's also important to let other people love you, do kind things for you.
Is there anything you'd like to share about your books, or how can people contact you on your website?
So this is my book. It's called Die Hard Atheist, From NDE Denier to Full-On Woo-Woo, Against My Will, because I wanted to stay atheist, and I didn't get to. I'm a woo-woo. I also have an addiction memoir for alcoholics. It's called A Spiritual Evolution. It's very long. It's my whole story. It starts when I was little, goes until I basically find Seattle Ions, and it's for alcoholics. Think of it like a speaker meeting, but the speaker speaks for 8 hours. I have a little collection of short stories that I wrote and published when I was young, and then coming out from Seattle Ions, I don't get any money from this. All the money goes to, I don't get any money from my book either, because it costs more to advertise it than I get from it. But I want people to know, that's the point, not to make money, but for people to know that this is real. So the book that's coming out is, I think it's 33 interviews I did with near-death experiencers, and I condensed their stories down to 2,000 words. And that's going to be published by Ions, what we call the mothership, that's in Virginia. And we hope it will be ready by the conference in August. So
beautiful.
That's a nice collection of near-death experience.
I do have one last specific question now. Since your background was just atheist and no thought of the afterlife, does it do much good if when a religious person from any faith tries to convince an atheist to believe in their version of God? Does it do any good, or does the atheist need to go on their own journey like you did?
I think everyone needs their own journey, but sometimes when I talk to people and they say, oh, a weird thing happened to me once, and then I let them tell me their story and listen, and just the listening strengthens in them. Maybe this is legitimate this time when I, heard a voice or knew something, or, knew before somebody called, or knew I shouldn't do this, or do, I listen and I just try to reinforce it. There are people who come around. I have relatives I thought would, they said when I first put out the addiction memoir, they said it was all nonsense. And they know other people who had near-death experiences now. I really think that near-death experiences are what's going to open the door. That podcast, Telepathy Tapes, was very popular.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I enjoyed those. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's happening slowly. And really, we need to know there are consequences for our actions, because you can put yourself in hell. If your barrier of anger and fear is too thick and you go through life full of anger and fear, you cannot join with God. You're going to be stuck apart from God. And being stuck apart from God and not in your body anymore, that is hell.
I really believe that. That's the perfect description. And that's a description that you don't really hear, or at least I never heard growing up in church, but it makes perfect sense, especially if I correlate that to Return from Tomorrow by George Ritchie, because he had the tour, Jesus was giving him a tour around planet Earth, but in the spirit body. And he went into a bar where there was all these drunk people, dead. There were real people, but there was also dead spirits that were alcoholics. And so God let them have what they loved so much. And they were trying to grab a glass or a beer and drink it, but their hand kept passing through the glass and they couldn't get their alcohol fixed, but they were stuck in eternity. Or then they went to a plane of hell, he called it. Like if there is a hell, this was it. And there's all these angry people that had anger issues they never let go of, and they were cursing at each other and trying to punch, but they were inept. All their punches would just pass through the other person. And they were fighting, but they were ineffective. And they were just stuck in their negative emotions, separated from God. But then the powerful thing, and this also blows my mind, and this also goes against conventional Christian knowledge, but they weren't really eternally there if they didn't want to be, because there were angels in the distance trying to communicate to all these angry people that were fighting, and these angels were basically saying, just rethink your situation, call on God, call on us, we're here to help you, we love you. But they couldn't hear it because they wanted to stay stuck in their emotions.
There are demons that are just they have become anger, they have become hatred. And, there's nasty things floating around too. I'm not just saying all spirits are good.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a believer and I try to start my day with love and gratitude. But if I turn on social media and I'm like, oh, there's a war, there's somebody getting beat up over something stupid, there's a whatever, I can get triggered so fast. And I'm like, this is not good. And I have to realize it's what you put into it. Because if we're putting love and gratitude into the universe or into our social media or whatever, that's a ripple effect. And hundreds or dozens or thousands of people could see this ripple effect. And so we get to choose what we're putting out, Yeah,
for sure. Maybe
that's a bit of a tangent. But hey, this has been marvelous. I really appreciate you sharing. It's been lovely to meet you. I hope I get to see you at an IANS event someday. I almost died, but I didn't have an out-of-body experience. And
just go to registration hasn't started yet, but it will soon, and it's going to be in Seattle.
Oh, great. Okay. Before I stop the recording, is there anything else on your heart that you want to share with the audience?
I would just say practice love. Practice loving and expand what that means. It doesn't just mean love your family. It means love everybody, love the trees. Just expand your loving power like it was a muscle you wanted to develop.
Even love the spiders. Love the spiders too.
Yeah, I like them now. I can hold them in my hand.
Well, great. It was so wonderful to meet you.
It was great to talk to you.
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, now's a great time to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and don't stop believing in miracles and the echoes from beyond. Here's another great video you can watch as we learn life lessons from these amazing near-death experiences.